We'd like to start. Good afternoon. We are going to discuss from startup to scale up in life science industry in Israel. My name is Benny Zevi. I'm managing partner of Tel Aviv Venture Partners. I've been involved in the Israeli life science industry in the last 20 years in various capacities. In the last 15 years, I'm venture capitalist, deeply involved in the industry in various aspects. And I have here three leading women of the Israeli life science industry. They'll introduce themselves and their companies, and we start from there. So please.
You're sharing. Hi. Can anybody close the door, please? Thank you.
Coming in? You want to close the door, please? Thank you.
Option value gone. Close the door. That's it. Good. Hi, my name is Anat Nashitz. I'm a partner with Orbimed in Israel. Orbimed, to those of you who are not familiar, is one of the largest healthcare investment firms in the world. We manage about $15 billion. We have 5 offices, 2 in the States, 2 in Asia, and 1 in Israel. And we work across all asset classes, including venture, private equity, royalty, and hedge fund. So it's quite a diverse picture. All we do is healthcare. We're very, very focused. And within that, it includes biotech and medical devices and digital health, etc. So that's that. I've been in the industry for 20 plus years.
2 years.
Two and a half years. 2.5 years. With many stations along the way, but I think that's all I need to know from now. And then we'll answer some questions.
All right. So first of all, I'm very proud to be a part of a woman panel. That's first for me. Okay. Yes, you're you should be the happiest. You should be the happiest. Anyway, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zippy Ozer Almon. I manage a company in the name of Luminis. Luminis is a company that it's an Israeli company, but a global one that is headquartered in Israel. We are around $500 million in terms of revenue. So we're I'm proud to say we're the number 1, the largest medical device company in Israel. Basically what we do is we develop, we manufacture, we distribute and market and service devices which are energy-based device, which means usually it's either kind of our heritage comes from laser, and they have been used either for procedure which are being kind of done in hospital or in the clinic. We operate in 2 major areas. One is medical and another one is aesthetics, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michal Geva, and I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Tri Ventures. So doing a smaller piece of what Anat mentioned, we are a fund that invests in medical devices and digital health, primarily Israeli companies, but also invest in European and American companies. We're great believers in working on one hand very, very closely with the entrepreneurs, so really getting involved in the early and mid stage where we can help with not just capital, but connections, introductions, strategy, and operations if needed. And on the other hand, we work very, very closely with the large corporates. And in order for startups to succeed, it's not enough just enjoying and having a great technology, but in order to make it a business like Tzipi is talking about, you have to make sure you know how to bring it to the market, how to pass all the stages of development and approval and reimbursement and business models. And this is kind of the bridge that we at Tri Ventures are trying to help the entrepreneurs, not only with money, but advice, connections, and other things.
So the life science sector in Israel is an important part of the high-tech scene. It's about a quarter of the high-tech scene in Israel. It is based on scientific excellence coming from the universities, hospital, About more than 50% of the publication from the universities and research institute in Israel are in life sciences. More than 50% of the IP generated in the universities and hospitals and research institute are in life science, and more than 50% of the commercial licensing agreement are coming. That's one part. The entrepreneurship will belong to all the high-tech sector, not just typical for the life science. It's also based on high quality of the healthcare system, the physicians in Israel. It's based on significant support of the government. About a quarter of the government support through the Israel Innovation Authority for R&D goes to life sciences. It's based also from technologies coming from the army, especially in medical device, in health IT, cybersecurity for healthcare. The presence of the multinational centers in Israel, all the medical device companies are either investing in Israel or have some activity in Israel. Pharma companies are involved in the incubator system. They are part of the owner of several incubators. Half of the incubators are involved in life science. So we have all the ingredient, and there is a lot of investment, actually, especially in the last 5 years. Last year, 2017, the investment in life science sector were 1.2 billion. This year is almost 900 for the first 3 quarters, so we will hope to reach the same amount of funding. So there is a lot of funding coming to this sector. We have about 1,400 companies in Israel dealing with different aspects of the life science industry, biotech, medical device, health IT, and digital health. Unfortunately, most of them are small companies, R&D stage, and we have very few, very mid-sized to global companies. Luminis is an exception. And the question is why? Why we have so little global companies in Israel? And I would like to, each one of you to address, and maybe Tzipi, you'll relate to how Luminis became a global company. But is it, what is absence of enough funding, absence of manpower, lack of experience in marketing, sales, and etc.? Why do we have so many, so few Israeli global life science company? So, Anat, you want to start?
Here it works now. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all of the above, I think, right? So to get big companies, you need a number of things. One, you need sufficient financing to bring it to a place where it's evolved enough to be a standalone entity. And you need that financing from entities that have a sufficient runway to be able to hang in there. So if you're funded predominantly by venture capital, which, by the way, is nice here, but not as abundant as it is in the US, for example, then,
Can you hear her?
yeah.
No?
Okay, this is better. So, I don't know, I'm not going to repeat it, so I'll just start again. But it's driven by the ability to be a large company is driven by financing, ability to be around for the long term, a management team that can carry it off and create a big company, and can also be a face vis-a-vis public markets, which provide the financing or the fuel to take the company from a particular stage to a truly independent entity. And I think here we have a venture community. It's been evolving very nicely over the last couple of decades, but still you won't see $300 million Series A's that you do see in the Valley, in life sciences anyway. We just closed the largest ever Series A in Israel a few months ago, and that was 60, which is great for a Series A, and we brought international funds to join us and all that, and that was fantastic, but still it's not 300 million. So, one, I think entrepreneurs here are fabulous, but not many of them have the capability to take a company to that level of maturity, and quite often, if you want to take a company public in the U.S., you'll be told, where's the U.S. management team? And that creates tension. And, those are dynamics that we all have to manage, and we do, but I don't think we're there yet in terms of maturity.
All right. So the way I look at it is that, first of all, it's very difficult to become a large company. It is. Scaling up is very challenging, not only in the healthcare space, but in general. It's very challenging. And I think that for us Israelis, it's more challenging. And the reason is that when we look at the Israeli market, how much it represents, then we don't have a home market. So I can say that for Luminis, the home market here in Israel is significantly below 1%. Okay, so we sell 99.9 something abroad. And it means that we have the disadvantage. So if a company is an American company and they want to start with the US market, for them it is not only that they have more funding, but it's much easier and it's much cheaper. Okay, so the go-to-market is much easier because most of the customer base, let's just talk about the US, which is kind of half, I think, of the healthcare industry. Okay, so it's much easier for them to build an infrastructure of sales. It's much easier for them to recruit regulatory people and to get the regulatory approval because the FDA would make it much easier for someone who's kind of understands and talks the language to register the product. They are much closer to the KOL of the market. And the KOL of the market are significantly, very, very important. And the reason is they help you to shape the product in order for the product to meet the customer needs. They give you the podium, okay? So if you're working with them on a day-to-day kind of basis, it's much easier. And we, from a distance, everything that we do is much more complex, okay? So there is, I think, first of all, the issue of how do you grow to be a large global company when you are when you don't have a local market? And the local market is usually the one that gives companies the scale. I think the second thing really relates to the, in the healthcare spaces, especially, because we do see global companies, kind of building elsewhere, is the meaning of the go-to-market. Okay, and what do I mean by that? The go-to-market are the sales reps who actually go and sell your product. And if I look at Luminis, okay, for us, for example, we have 30-something% of our sales goes to sales and marketing. Okay, 30-something%. Okay, and salespeople which means that salespeople are very, very expensive. They cost like $250,000 each. In capital device, at least, it takes them around minimum 3 quarters until they produce something. Okay, until you have a kind of, if you recruited the right person. Okay. For the first three quarters, he just builds his funnel. Okay, so it means that if I want to grow my business, let's say I'm Luminis and I want to double my business now. And by the way, we can double our business now, but it means that we need to hire like additional, I don't know how many people that for 9 months will sell around 0. And that cost is very, very costly, as you've said. And there are no investors here in Israel to support that. So from my point of view, the go-to-market, I think, is an amazing kind of barrier. And I think that once you've crossed the barrier in terms of the go-to-market, and I can talk about it later if you want to elaborate, I think then scaling up is much easier.
No, I couldn't agree more with both of the things you said. I think what happens here is that we see a lot of Israeli companies. First of all, Israeli is very strong and known for its innovation. So if we have to look from innovation to scalability, I think Israeli entrepreneurs and the talent base is more on the front side. And then some exceptional ones could do what Tzipi has been doing in the last many years and build large companies. But for the most part, even companies that have a great product and want to scale, very early in the process, the management, the leadership is transitioned to where the first market is, meaning usually it's the United States. So management either relocate there or a new team is augmenting the current team. And but corporate is usually based in where your market is. So Luminis in that way, and Teva, which is the other Israeli large example, are the outliers, I would say, because we do have a lot of Israeli companies that are growing and building businesses, but their management usually is where the market is. And therefore, one of the things that happens, it's a little bit like a spiral, right? So if most of the managerial capabilities are coming from the side of the ocean. From the States, for example, the talent base here is more limited. So we'll have more Israelis going to the other side, augmented by local people, and grow nice businesses, and only a fraction of them come back. And those are the ones that usually are helping to build the next wave of large companies. But I agree, funding on one hand and the fact that your market is not here local are the two main issues that I think, from my perspective, makes it just a little bit harder. Because technology is only the first step in this building of businesses, but integration into your market is probably the hardest one, the hardest challenge.
It's so hard. Are there any subsector in the life science, biotech, medical device, health IT, or digital health that are more prone, or we have better chances to build global Israeli companies, because otherwise, what you just said, all of you, is that the chances for a company to become a global are quite slim or quite small. So shall we keep them like that and just generate, R&D companies for the large corporate or whatever to license them down or merge or whatever? Or shall we try, what shall we do? And if you can relate to the specific subsectors.
So, can I start? Okay. I think the answer is that in theory, they could all grow to large companies, actually. And as you were asking the questions, I was thinking, let's start with medical devices and digital health. But that's not actually necessarily true, because in biotech, in fact, I think there's a better chance of building a valuable company. It doesn't have to be large in terms of the amount of people in it, but the good thing about biotech is that you do your science, you do your trials. There is actually some synergy amongst the team in that regard. You don't need salespeople because you sell the company before you get there. And you could aggregate a number of molecules under one roof or one management and create a very valuable program that a big pharma would want to buy or in-license at very high numbers. So I actually think there's a better chance of doing that in biotech, because in both medical devices and digital health, you need to scale the team. You need to have local presence in the market. You can't do it by sitting in Israel and traveling or hiring a small team there. So I think that's entirely possible. I think and I'll give examples as well to what Michal was saying in terms of how you build. So I'm moving to digital health for a moment because Tzipi is much better qualified to talk about devices of anybody here. So we have 2 digital health companies that are still led by their Israeli entrepreneurs. They're scaling the revenue extremely well. In one case, the founder, who's the CEO, moved to New York, Israeli guy, built a New York team around him, and has a team here, and is, and it's a global company already because they're selling in Israel, in the US, in Asia, in Europe, so they're global, small still, but global. There's another company where they're doing the same thing, but out of Israel. As we grow, we'll probably add teams, but I think across all sectors, it's possible, but it requires all the things we talked about before.
And funding.
Yeah.
I think that also funding is much easier to get for a biotech company.
Yeah.
The public market are open, the IPO market is open. It's harder for a medical device or digital health company that
the other
the
thing,
public market don't get it as well as the
true.
biotech.
And the other thing that's important here is actually currently, and I was just looking this up today, currently there is more IPO and licensing activity than M&A in the biotech sector, which is great news for exactly that. Because you can license, if you have 5 drugs in your portfolio, you can take one of them, out-license it, and use that to fund everything else. Same with IPOs. So at the moment, I think so.
All right. So first of all, I'm a great believer is that if someone wants to do something, it is possible. So although it's more difficult, I think it's possible. I do think that there are some, if I look at some of the Israeli companies, so I believe that if you have, for example, a very special kind of technologies. You know, I look at, for example, at Given Imagen, okay, that they came with some proprietary, unique technology. Then you can get the funding, which will allow you to build the critical mass, okay? And that gives me hope, because in Israel there are, as you said, Michal, lots of very innovative kind of technologies. The question then, to my opinion, is how do you scale up from a single product company? And usually they mostly sell in the US, okay? That's where they focus if they're smart. How do you scale up to a portfolio company? Because it's very difficult to be a large company which is based only on one product and one product only. And then the question is, can you come up with another kind of breakthrough technology, you know, kind of, usually it doesn't work like that. Why? Because if I look at it, you know, it's like in the VC market. You have to spend like, you know, your money on 10 projects and one becomes, you know, kind of a big success, a joker, okay? But a smaller company cannot spend their money like Pfizer on 10 projects at the same time. So their ability to scale actually and to move from a single product company to a portfolio company is much limited. And then actually the way I look at it, the only way kind of to progress is to try and make some acquisition that will broaden the portfolio that you have within your current area. The acquisition will also get you some more access to market, some more talent in the regulatory environment, which, by the way, to my view, is one of the greatest obstacles in Israel. We have very, very limited regulatory knowledge in the country, okay? And I think, you know, once you have this kind of unicorn, this joker, if you move into acquisition strategy, still focusing on one market, leveraging the other markets via distribution, and only then, you know, starting to open one by one direct operation, and you have the wish actually to do it, because many times, you know, the investor actually wants to sell and wants to get their money now, not later. It is, and if the government would support with some incentive, because otherwise the investor will just simply sell, I think we have an amazing foundation here to build amazing companies, big companies, not only in value, but also in revenues and presence.
So I'll talk about a different angle, how maybe we can build bigger companies. And this would be trying to find out the competitive edge, okay? I think, as you said, CP, you have to find out if you have a good product and you have really something that could leverage and help a lot of organizations, people, whatever, around the world, then you might have a joker if you know how to bring it. And if I look at pharma, medical devices, and digital health, I think that first of all, I'm not sure how much you know about Israel, so we are very fertile ground for all those three sectors, okay? There is, as Benny said, there's over 14,000 companies here. There's 1,400, yes, sorry, 1,400, 100 companies, but it is a hub of innovation in all those three sectors. Each one has a reason why it became more, you know, significant than other places in the world. But I'd like to focus the next minute or two on digital health. Digital health is, you know, everybody's talking from transitioning from oil economy to data economy. And in healthcare, data is very valuable, and as you collect more data over the years, it has more and more value. And due to many different reasons, pressure to get costs down all the way to doing more personalized medicine, working more on prevention, there's a lot of reasons why data-driven technologies has become a major sector, I would say, that brings not only the interest of healthcare organizations, but tech companies. We see it more and more. Just in Israel, in this sector, we have over 500 different companies, and this has evolved only in the past, I would say, 6-7 years. And why am I saying that this is an area of uniqueness of Israel? Because Israel was the first country in the world to become from paper to paperless, from became electronic medical records about over 20 years ago. Just as a reference, the states have transitioned to become paperless just in the last 5 or 6 years. Okay? So if you think about data and the amount of reservoirs of data that is available here in Israel today, it's very unique in the amount. And if you can go back 20 or 25 years and collect all the information about me or anybody here in Israel, we have about 8.5 million people, and we all have longitudinal data available. So all of a sudden you think about this huge reservoir of data and it becomes extremely unique. Okay? If you want to go to a hospital in the States, you'll have very fragmented and shorter period of time. Okay? So this is an area, I think, that Israel could blossom. In a way, like you know probably that cybersecurity is very associated with Israel. Everybody thinks cybersecurity, and many people think about Israel. About a third of the cybersecurity companies today in the world come from this little country. If you look to the healthcare, there is no reason that digital health will not become an engine of growth to the country, and will pave the road and lead the market in terms of innovation. We have a lot of data. Today there is more and more openness from the government to give access to data. There is a lot of entrepreneurs, not just from the healthcare, but from the IT space, knowing AI, machine learning, use of a lot of big data capabilities. There is funding. This sector in the last 3 years have tripled, and last year there was over $11 billion went into this sector. So you think about this and you say, why not focus on one area and say, this is an area that not only the entrepreneurs today understand the uniqueness, not only the investors, not only the strategics, but actually the government. And the government of Israel decided last year, about 18 months ago, to take this sector and make it an engine of growth. And I know a lot of you come from the academia, and we more come from the business, but the place where we see now new business models emerging is exactly this place. And we, for example, at TriVentures, we just launched a new fund that is in collaboration, in partnership with the largest hospital in Israel called Sheba Medical Center, where Sheba, which is an academic center and a healthcare organization, which is owned by the government, is partnering with a business in order to not just provide capital, but provide access to this huge reservoir of medical data in order to accelerate innovation. So talking about new businesses, you always need to think about the different ecosystem players. It's not only entrepreneurs, it's not only capital, it's the government, it's the regulatory, it's the market, of course. And I think, Benny, to your question, I think this is an area that we have a good likelihood, because of this competitive edge, because we're more advanced in terms of the capabilities, the data, and the systems that have been developed here in the past 20 years, to build here companies that will have the capabilities to become bigger.
I completely agreed, and I'm sitting on the National Committee of Digital Health of Israel, but and I really deeply involved in that sector for the last 6 or 7 years even. But the question, if it's two questions. First of all, we have the capabilities to build companies, as you mentioned. The question if we didn't miss the train. For example, you know, data is available in all the Scandinavian countries for 20 years, and they are using it. Genomic banks, or, you know, for citizens, has been around in several other countries, you know, in the UK, in Denmark, in other countries, though in the US now, you know, all of us, you know, the precision medicine initiative of the government, getting data from 1 million people, you know, all the genomic sequencing and health record and all the environmental data in following them for a certain period of time. So, and we just started it in Israel recently. It's just in planning. So the question, it's true that we have health record for the last 20 years. The question is if we missed the train or not. That has to be proven in the few years. That has to be proven in the next few years. But anyway, I think that Israel...
Can you say something about the privacy issue? Because I'm scared to hell if I hear this, that my medical data would be sucked into a commercial company and they start to earn money out of that and know everything about me. Maybe I'm exaggerating.
Not exaggerating.
Yeah.
I happen to have a solution. I'll tell you about it.
So that's a big issue about privacy and who is using your data. The data belongs to the person. That's for first of all, and according to the new GDPRS and all those new rules, especially in Europe, that are becoming actually global and everyone keeps that, but the data belongs to the person. In Israel, by the way, when any citizen or patient comes to the emergency room, the emergency physician can see all his medical data, doesn't matter where it was originated. That was something that was done by the government. It's called, used to called OFEC, now it's called EITAN. It's a system that on a computer, but it's a virtual file. You know, it gets all the data from all the different files, from your private physician, private hospital, public hospital, outpatient, all the health fund in Israel or HMOs in Israel, and it can get all your information and treat you properly. You know, so all the, basically all the population in Israel is on that system. They didn't ask the population. You can opt out, but they didn't ask the population to opt in. Usually when you ask a population to opt in or opt out, it's only about 2% that are doing either opting in or opting out. So they didn't ask, but from the healthcare point of view or the person point of view, it's really help his treatment when it comes to the ER or something in a computer, and it doesn't stay there. It's virtual. It was done. The system was based on an Israeli company, DB Motion, that was acquired by Allscripts a few years ago, but it was one of the first success in Israel digital health companies, and now the founder of that company are building the next big success in the digital health company. Congratulations, Anat. So, and now Anat will talk about them.
So, as you say, privacy is a huge issue.
I think there's a much more bigger issue. Less than 50% of the decisions are made in a hospital about patients are not evidence-based. Basically, just a guess. If you apply data, then it can be much better improved. How do you cope with that challenge? Because actually, there's a lot of experimental on the side with live patients and a lot of errors on it. And actually, my statement is the opposite. The privacy that it kills.
We'll talk about what.
Yeah. Let me answer the privacy question, and then Benny. I know, but he was interested in privacy. So we'll answer his question on privacy, and then we'll answer your question on the other thing, which is equally important.
Privacy kills.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my opinion. That's my strong belief. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, at least I have the option to decide. Yeah. Well, under GDPR, there's no opt-out. Under GDPR, there's only opt-in.
It's easy to opt out.
Yeah, but that's not GDPR compliant.
So just to answer the privacy thing, okay? So there are two uses of data, right? One is the use that Benny mentioned, which is to serve you as a patient. And I think in that regard, the fact that we have the OFIC or EITAN system is great, because when you show up at the ER, they know how to take care of you, and I think and I'm agreeing with you in this. In addition, however, data is being used for commercial reasons, because pharma companies want to use it to do research, and payers want to use it to find out which drugs they need to pay for, and et cetera, and many other uses. And there is a privacy issue.
I don't mean pharma. You mean the GPs, the people
I know.
who treat patients in day-to-day business.
Yeah. Let's address it in a second. I'm just answering him. Okay? I'm answering him now, not you. I'm looking at him, not at you.
Okay.
Okay?
Still in the previous question.
We're trying to do this in a sequential manner, okay?
Okay, good.
Thank you. So there's a company called DB Motion, which which was founded by the guy who developed the Ofek or Itan system, who knows what he's doing, and we invested in it, which is why I'm telling you about it. And they've developed a system that enables you to, on the one hand, take all the data in an organization and put it in the same place. By the way, I'll answer your question about that in a second. And two, make it synthetic so that you can actually sell it to someone, and it's 100% secure. There's no privacy issue at all. Now, it can be used in real-time decisions by physicians. So the real-time ability to query the system says that if you're a physician sitting in front of a patient and he has a particular profile, you can actually, at a click of a button, find out what 10,000 other patients looked like and what happened to them and what people did. And that informs your decision-making as a physician with real information. And that is huge power, and that's what this company is doing. And now let Benny finish that.
You know, now to your question, I agree with you. A lot of the medical judgment is magic, or something that the doctors wants us to think it is magic. And I think data, as we accumulate more of it and we'll see what's working and what's working less, will help us take better decisions. And this is exactly what this whole area of digital health, I actually want to see it and call it more transformational health, because it's not about digitalizing, it's about transforming the way we think, the way we take care of patients. I think there is always will be a role for the patient, for the physician. There's a lot of things that we still need the human touch and the human hand. But for sure, with the amount of data that is collected from all over the world about protocols, about clinical studies, even in a subsector, there is a lot of data that could be compiled and help doctors take a more specific, more precise, and knowledgeable decisions on the fly. And this is where the world is going. A lot of those digital health companies are using those data to make the treatment more personalized. So maybe you and I will have the same symptoms, but we'll have different treatment based on patients that were like me. That is different than in patients that were like you, and we'll have different type of treatment. There's more elements of prevention, right? So they will, based on this data and accumulated historical data, we will know how to treat diseases before the onset of the disease, but when we see the first signs, we'll try to change the curve that patients are on, right? And instead of becoming a diabetic, we can start monitor them way in advance and change the trajectory of the progress of the disease.
So how are you going to intervene with the protocols? Because protocols are quite rigid. They're not made for personalized medicine. So how do you do that?
That will change. That will change over time. And I think one of the biggest problems today in healthcare is actually the non-standard way of taking patient care, okay? So the air that is in the system, if we go to 5 different physicians, you'll have 5 different opinions. It's not only bad for the patients, it's actually bad for the healthcare organizations, right? So there's a lot of effort to try and standardize the care, and I think this is what we're going to see in the next decade. We're going to see more of standardization. We'll see more personalization as a result of that, and we'll see more and more things that are coming outside the hospital. Accessibility, doing more things outside the hospital or the clinic and taking them to the home, to the mobile, to the retail, to the corner of the street, to CVS and Walgreens or any retail activity. And I think those are the 3 major changes that we'll see. And within the hospitals, we'll see a lot of workflow efficiency driven by data. So we'll see all of those things. That's why I think it's going to be transforming the way we're consuming the healthcare.
So few things. I think that the way I look at it, then data actually is not only kind of for the data and data analytics and how to treat patients. We are actually seeing it coming together with the medical device itself. So our ability to analyze the procedure during the procedure and giving the physician recommendation on what he should be doing differently than he's currently doing. Okay, so I think there will be a lot of kind of upgrades, okay, in terms of if you're a very skilled physician, okay, you're gifted, but most of the physicians who are doing the procedure are not kind of very, very skilled. And even the skilled one, you know, they're not always, you know, kind of, they're doing 5-6 procedures a day, you know, they're not always kind of spot on, very focused. And I see the data integration, data analytics, real-time data analytics actually taking medicine to the next level. So that's the first thing, and taking it to the more customized kind of level. Second, I want to be provocative and say that, you know, I looked at the room. I think that everyone in this room is above 25. Maybe you're younger? No, not even you. Okay. So I think, you know, guys, the way I look at it, privacy is overrated. Okay. We in our age think that privacy is a big deal. You know, we never, you know, we didn't talk about this, you know, when, I'm sure, you know, kind of when we got pregnant, we waited like 3 months, you know, until the pregnancy is secured to tell the neighbors and so on. Today on Facebook, the minute a girl gets pregnant, she posts, come on, yes or no? She posts the stick with the 2 lines saying, you know, hooray, I got pregnant. Okay. So the way I look at it is that, you know, we keep on thinking, you know, about, yes.
The pregnancy test at that minute,
yeah.
someone knows
that yes. Yeah. So the way I look at it is that, yeah, that you know, we kind of from the I don't want to say the more experienced generation, okay, we were raised on the foundation of privacy. The more young people, really, they do not even understand what is the concept of privacy. Okay, I mean, they do not understand what's the issue of everyone knowing everything about my life. Okay.
I think that 5 years ago you would have been spot on, but with the current developments that we see with Facebook and other organizations, I think that your current thoughts are, with respect, are getting old-fashioned. And I think that the next generation of young people will be very, or maybe very privacy interested, and you risk by leaving the importance of privacy out, you risk that you will not get the next generation on board.
So I'll tell you my view, okay? First, I think it's a wave, okay? So kind of in the progress of losing kind of privacy, okay? There is an up and down, okay? The issue with the Facebook, if you look at how many people abandoned Facebook, it's a minimal, it's marginal, and most of the people, to be honest, you know, they care less. So I'm not saying not to keep and not to give the people the ability to opt out and not to keep the patient information and so on. But I do think that overall, in terms of privacy, you know, I think it's overrated, you know, especially by the older kind of generation. And second, the value to the patient to be treated, to know that you're coming to the hospital and all of your information is already in and they can give you the right care. You know, I think it has a lot of value, to my opinion. Anyway, I wouldn't opt out from one central database.
And I want to add something. It's one of those risks that you kind of learn to accept. In the beginning, you're shocked. This is a great example, not in terms of the data, but in terms of its risks, in terms of radiation and things of that nature. Initially, when they came out, it's like the trains and anything. Initially, oh my God, what's going to happen? And we all know actually this is going to kill us at some point, right? But we keep using it because we're addictive. The same with privacy and data. The minute we have available, we just want to keep using it because we see the benefit in it, and therefore we kind of live with it.
Especially as a patient, if you
we see the value. And there's several different companies that, you know, instead of trying to get in partnerships with healthcare organization and large reservoirs of data, etc., they just came to, you know, oncology patients, okay? They tell you, you were just diagnosed, or you were just diagnosed with cancer. Let me take care of everything, tell you where you have to treat, tell you what are the good doctors, what kind of insurance you need, everything. Just give me your data, right? And people went, volunteered, gave the data, and got an excellent service, okay? And this is, you can imagine how much data they have collected, and this became a very, very large company today with over $5 billion worth of market cap. Because people eventually, when they have, they can gain something out of it. And those, by the way, are not the 20 years old, not my child that is 18-year-old and really doesn't understand why we have to wait for a few days to get our blood test, or why we have to wait a week to get our MRI results. They just can't conceptualize it. And I think that by the time they'll need those tests, that will shorten on the expense of privacy. And but even in oncology, which are a much older part of the populations, this is happening by the forces of the markets.
My last remark, and then
there were surveys that were done among consumer or patient that, you know, most of them would share their healthcare data, more data with the provider, even with the insurance company, you know. So, but I want to say a few other things. First of all, I think digital health and health IT are going to change completely the way we consume and get services from the healthcare system. But no physician is going to use any technology in digital health without proving its value. You know, we are not using medical devices, we are not using drugs without prior proven their value. And value is a better outcome in a cost-effective way in the healthcare system. That's the only value can be measured in the healthcare system. Better outcome can be not just less morbidity and mortality, but better patient experience, better flow at the work, and etc. and cost saving, you know, can come in anyway. So that's one thing. The other thing on using, you know, we have many sources of data nowadays that we didn't have in the past. In the past, our healthcare data were what we had in a medical record. But now we have all those digital biomarkers, all the wearables that we are using, all the phones, all the application. We have much more data. On top of that, we have all the omics, the genomic, the proteomic, the microbiomic. And we have to gather all this data together. The problem in the healthcare system, those data sets are sit in silos. So the question of interoperability and how you get all this data, because even if you get just the genomic data, it's not enough. You have to get his background, the environment data, and etc. and etc. The other question is, if we take all those data and build all kind of big data that has anything and put all kind of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing, the question is, if we are able from this big data to come to conclusion and actionable items for the person, the single patient. That's still a question, if we can get it, and that has to be proven. The other thing that we learned is that depends on the quality of the data and the source of the data. You know, for example, even some of the imaging companies that are using now artificial intelligence learned the hard way that if you build your platform on the data, let's say from X US medical center, and you get millions of MRIs or chest X-ray or CT, and you build your data. You take the same algorithm to a different setting, or even to a place in Israel, the results are completely different. So that has to be proven that you can do it and use it and come to conclusion for an actionable item for the single patient. That's one of the main things that we have. Artificial intelligence, I call it, and many other people call it augmented intelligence. We are actually helping the physician to come to the right conclusion. We are not replacing the physician. In healthcare, there always will be a physician, a nurse, someone with empathy to understand the patient, because that's how we want to be treated. But most of that's the holy grail of medicine. I'm a physician, I can tell you. That's the holy grail of medicine. You know, empathy. That's the but you know, it's going to augment that by giving us more time to spend with the patient, because we don't have to do all those analyses and use our time for, you know, entering data into the electronic or medical record, etc., etc. So we have more. That's the magic. That's the magic. We'll have more time actually to see the patient, to treat him, to talk with him, to examine him. Absolutely. That's my thinking. No. Depends on the quality. Depend on the quality of the technology and how it's going to be to deliver to the physician. You know, the physician is not going to look at 10 screens in order to get that application, other application. We have one screen, everything is going to enter. Actually, in the future, it's already being implemented in many places. You know, you don't have to type anything. Everything is, you know, translated from the communication, from the voice, directly to the electronic medical record. Even the physician-patient communication. So things are going to change, and you see it. The other thing that in my opinion, we see more and more the tech giants, the Apples and Google and IBM and Amazon are going into the healthcare. And those companies have a ton of experience using data, using artificial intelligence. They understand the consumer. You know, consumer is the king now in every sector, in healthcare as well. In healthcare as well, we want to be treated like consumer. You know, if I want to see a physician, I want to see him tomorrow or maybe next hour. And that's going to happen in the future. Most of the interaction between physician and doctors are not going to happen in hospitals or going to happen outside, anywhere. So and they know how to treat consumer. They understand the business model of consumer. So all these tech giants are going to build the infrastructure to use all those technologies. They are going to own the infrastructure, and the classical stakeholder of the healthcare system are going to actually practice medicine and treat patients. That's how I see the future.
May I just make one remark? The consumer of Facebook, I'm not the consumer of Facebook, I use Facebook. The consumer of Facebook and all the others are companies, not people. And I agree with most what you are saying, or with many things. It reminds me a bit of the Brave New World. You know this novel by Aldous Huxley. So there must be frameworks. If you do it completely free, data using in medical terms or medical data, watch what comes out. We will see. Maybe there is some cultural difference even here in the room between Europe, US, and Israel.
We have to deal with all these issues, cultural, ethical issues, regulatory issues. We have to deal with them.
Okay.
We cannot ignore them.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to mention it.
That would be solved. For example, in the UK, they examined 500,000 sick people. They did everything on them. They did gene sequencing. Everyone went to 24-hour examination, physical examination, MRI, CT, X-ray, physician examination. And the rule was, and it still is, if they found something, incidentally, let's say I think I'm a healthy person, I get an MRI and they see a tumor in my head. They couldn't tell the patient. Unbelievable. That's the role of the UK database. They couldn't tell the patient if incidentally they've seen a tumor in his head. They think it's very ethical. I argue with them because I'm a physician. I argue with them, but that's the rule. That's the rule in the UK, basically.
That's why I think this issue is not going to be solved necessarily.
I'm not sure there'll be rules that will apply all over the world. We see today the HIPAA compliance versus the GDPR in Europe, which is very, very different. But those issues of privacy, sharing data, what you can do with the data is going to be addressed, I think, by the different nations, by the regulatory bodies, and we'll have different business models in different places, for sure.
Maybe just to add one more thing. The way I look at it is we're definitely seeing that the population is aging, okay? Which means, and when we look at the number of physicians, it's not growing in the same pace that the aging population is growing. Which means that we have to make the treatment, how we treat patient, how we diagnose patient, and so on, to be significantly more efficient. And without having the data, we cannot pre-diagnose people to know in advance what's going to happen. And the efficiency and the accuracy of the procedure and the time that the procedure takes is going to be longer. So the way I look at it, I think, kind of a long-term kind of view, 20, 30 years kind of view, it's a must. Because otherwise we will not have enough physician to treat the amount of patient that we have if we will not improve the efficiency and the accuracy and the early diagnostic of the situation. So it's a kind of...
So the Israeli government is highly involved in the medical area, developing these kind of services. So how does this facilitate the ethical discussions? Because with the rise of AI, certainly ethical seems to be important. I think it's always important, not only with AI, but it's always important.
No, the Israel government is...
So the question will come up sooner or later that the treatment will be too expensive and people should be dying.
I don't think that you understood that well. The Israel government is not involved in the treatment or in the medical...
So who, then I'll ask an open question, who is facilitating this ethical discussion and when does it start? Because in my opinion it's actually quite necessary to start this discussion.
Okay, so the ethical discussion is the main issue in this national committee of the government. We have subcommittee that is actually dealing with all the ethical issues, and in the subcommittee we have more patients than people from the government or people outside like me. I'm not in that specific committee, but we have patient and patient organization that are dealing with those ethical issues. Of course, we have regulators and lawyers and etc., social workers, but the patients are the majority in this ethical committee,
so
basically.
So with the outcome of the ethical discussion, how is that embedded in the society? How
Meanwhile, the rules will be, it's in legislation right now, but the rules will be tougher than the GDPRS in Europe. There are much more constraints in Israel to use healthcare data than the new rules in Europe now, etc.
For example, the cost of a life.
What?
When you stop treatment because it's too costly, because it's all
healthcare is we are not doing it here in Israel. Here in Israel, it's a social country. Everyone can get everything that he needs. If he wants to have extra, choose the physician, choose the hospital. But it's a socialist country. It's taken out our taxes. Everyone has to pay that insurance for healthcare. So that's from the social security that is coming out of our salary. So everyone get the same treatment in Israel, and all the treatments, and the level of the healthcare delivery in hospitals and even in small clinic in Israel, it could be on both ends of Israel, are much higher quality than even in the US. Maybe not in the hospital, but hospital are the same level. But if you go to your primary physician, nowhere in Israel, the quality of care that you get is much better than the average in the US. Because in the US, if you get to a private physician or small clinic 50 miles out of Boston, I wish you good luck.
And by the way, in Israel, you don't stop treating someone because it's too costly. Even if he's 120 years old and he needs to get everything is covered. Everything is covered by the government. I mean, we pay like on taxes for it, and the kind of there is a lot of respect to the fact that everyone should get their best care regardless of where they come from, what's their age, what's their situation, and so on.
If you want to age and get high quality treatment,
Move to Israel.
then we're open for business.
By the way, I'm trying to convince my mother-in-law from the Netherlands to do that. So.
No, but we see, actually, it's interesting. We see more and more Israelis that relocated to all sorts of places in the world, and as they age, especially in the States today, that the cost of health is so expensive, the high deductibles are going and increasing, so it became a reason why to come back to Israel as people are aging because of health issues. It's an interesting trend that is happening.
So going back to the roots of startup to scale up.
Yeah, that's the way to
So talking about Israeli companies, and we have many niche companies or one product companies. So shall we go to these companies with a different approach and try to merge companies in several sectors, taking away the ego of the investor, of the entrepreneurs, and etc., and trying to build, I won't call it a platform, but a larger company with several products in everywhere. We have it more of course, in biotech, where you have a platform that you can treat many diseases, but even in medical device and digital health, shall we try to build and merge and combine companies in order to build one global company?
Or change. Let's change the order. So it's a good question. I grew up doing medical device startups, okay? And when I transitioned about 10 years ago to cross the lines to become an investor, I thought, well, this is a great idea. And why are we not doing all those roll-ups, putting all those little startups that their value proposition many times are very great, but in a narrow space. So why don't we put them all together under one roof? We were talking about the lack of managerial skill set and a lot of people, so it will be great. We'll find one good management team and put a bunch of different things. Much easier said than done. Much, much easier said than done. And maybe because we're Israelis too, it goes both ways. I think, we have to remember, a startup is an idea that somebody has to be super passionate about, okay? An entrepreneur, a founder of a startup is the beating heart of a startup, okay? You can't have a body without a beating heart. It means that they are dedicating, usually you have to really dedicate your life to give everything, to have a dream and to say, I don't care, don't confuse me with a lot of different things, I'm going this way. That means that this passion sometimes makes you a little bit blind about the opportunities and makes you very, eager to hold it. And sometimes even at all expenses. It happens on the entrepreneurs level, so management levels. It happens always also on the investors level, because think about it. If we have startups, we invested, we want to help them succeed, it's very hard to say, gosh, maybe we have to retract. We have to tell our investors that we didn't do so well. We have to figure out a different way. So on many different levels, it's just hard. And unfortunately, I think it's a harder concept. It makes a lot of sense, but it's very, very hard to execute. Where we see it more is like you mentioned, that when you have a leading platform, you have your joker, and now you have to expand your business, then those companies from, small startups that are scaling can start to become acquirers. And those acquisitions doesn't always have to be in hundreds of millions of dollars. Sometimes you can buy an asset, a company, tack it under your shoulder for a relatively low price, or you can do an HR acquisition, right, where you're taking and paying money, but basically for getting the team become part of your organization. So I think an M&A route, unfortunately, is more applicable, at least in this part of the world, than putting a bunch of different startups together and putting them under one roof.
I agree.
I think that's completely right, but I think there's maybe a way around it is, in incubators where you have shared infrastructure and people develop things together, at least they benefit from each other's experience. So you don't have the silos where someone sits in a room with his team and trying to solve everything on his own. At least you have collaboration, cooperation, and that maybe enriches the gene pool and makes each individual company more likely to succeed. So maybe they won't merge, but they work together a bit as a tribe, and I think that does help.
And I think we see more and more. For example, in this digital health, where you don't have to invent everything. In
medical devices and biotech, IP is currency, right? Intellectual property, patents. So you want to keep all your cards very close to your chest, not tell everybody what you're doing, etc., in order to maintain this competitive advantage. In digital health, it's much more, in a way, social. You can partner, and I'll do this part, you'll do this part, and together we'll do 1 + 1 = more than 2. And those startups, which are mostly younger and from the younger generation, so I see at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we see much more collaborations and partnership and revenue sharing models. Well, I'll do this, you'll do that, and we'll split the revenue that we're both maintaining from this business, for example.
Yeah. It happens with customers as well, where you're getting data from them. You're providing a service, you enable them to monetize or do something with the data, and then you revenue share with them. And that actually is an engine of growth because you get to learn from your customer and you both benefit.
I think that specifically in digital health, there's a room for platform even in Israel, because first of all, the reality is that very few companies, see that out of those 500 companies, very few companies are well funded. Very few. If you're not well funded, you cannot get to the market, you cannot prove the value, you cannot do enough studies to prove the value. That's first. The other thing is very hard to enter a US provider or UK provider. It's very tough. It's a long process, takes 18 to 24 months to do pilots and etc. In those providers, if you go, when Kaiser Permanente was here last year and told the Israeli company, don't come to me. First prove yourself, in small healthcare setting in the US, prove that you bring value, then come to me. So those providers, especially when you have to integrate with the system, with the electronic medical record, with the other CRM in the system, it's very tough for a small startup. So I think the reality will bring those companies that will come together. And there are platforms. For example, you can build platform for whatever. Diagnosis and treatment of colon cancer. They are all the way from pre-identify the patient to engaging them to looking at using AI to looking at the result of the colonoscopy and then look at the result of the biopsy and etc. So you can bring a platform for X disease. And actually, I myself, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I myself trying to do it now in Israel, to try to convince. You can start by licensing each one to the other and coming together, although you have to do some technological adjustment, but maybe, that's my hope, that will succeed and will be, by that way we can build a larger company with a much wider offering to the provider or the insurance or whoever you are, or customers. So just before the end, any questions from the audience to this knowledgeable woman besides me? Any last word? So are we going to have large companies in Israel? You have one or not? Asking Michal and so hope so. Okay, so thank you for your time.